Months turned into years, and even after giving birth to a baby boy, Chidera still didn't send Amaka to school. Instead, she forced Amaka to do all the household chores and take care of her baby. She would often beat and insult Amaka for the slightest mistakes, turning her into a common slave. Chidera's lies to Ngozi about Amaka's well-being continued. She would instruct Amaka to lie and say she was in a boarding school, eating well and doing fine. Meanwhile, Amaka suffered silently. Once upon a time, in a village in the eastern part of Nigeria, there were two sisters named Ngozi and Chidera. Angazi was the eldest sister and they lived with their mother because their father had passed away a long time ago. Life was tough for them. They struggled to have 3 meals a day and sometimes they couldn't even pay their school fees. Their mother was very sick, but she always told them not to cry and that things would get better for them. The three of them were alone in the village and nobody seemed to care about their troubles. But their mother kept hoping for a brighter future even though it felt like that day would never come. One day, Ngozi decided that they should go to the city to find work and make money. She talked to Chidera about it, but Chidera didn't want to leave their sick mother alone. She thought one of them should stay back to take care of her. Ngozi insisted that they both go because they needed money badly. Finally, they agreed that Ngozi would go to the city while Chidera would stay back to care for their mother. Their mother was sad to see Ngozi leave, but she knew they needed the money. The day before Ngozi was to leave, Chidera felt a bit of jealousy. She didn't want to be the one to stay back to care for her mother, so she had a different idea. She secretly left for the city, thinking she would also find work and help her family. The next morning, Ngozi couldn't find Chidera anywhere. She had left without saying goodbye. Ngozi searched the neighborhood but couldn't find her sister. Meanwhile, Chidera had reached the city and found a job in a local restaurant owned by a kind woman. Months passed and Chidera worked hard at the restaurant. Even though the pay wasn't great, she saved whatever little money she could, sometimes even taking extra money that came as stipends from customers at the restaurant. She didn't spend it recklessly, she kept saving and saving. Chidera never contacted her family in the village. She was busy making friends and earning money. Eventually, she found a better paying job at a boutique on the island. The job was good as she was a sales representative and Chidera felt so blessed to have had the job. She never once called or checked on her sister and mother back in the village. She was so caught up in her new life that she forgot about her family. After Chidera had left for the city, Ngozi was still there. She continued to take care of her sick mother all alone. Ngozi realized that she could no longer leave her mother alone. She worked so hard to earn each day, farming and doing menial jobs just to ensure they had enough to survive. One morning, before heading out to the farm, Ngozi promised her mother that today she would work extra hard to buy her medications with the money she had saved. When she returned home that evening, she found her mother's lifeless body on the floor. Ngozi was devastated. She had lost her mother and worse, she wasn't there when it happened. She searched desperately for help, even calling her friends in the city to ask about Chidera, but no one knew where she was. Alone and grieving, Ngozi buried her mother at the backyard of their house. She hoped Chidera would return, but as time passed, she realized she was on her own. She decided not to go to the city anymore. Her reason for going was to help her mother, who was now gone. Life in the village continued, and with no time, suitors began to arrive at Ngozi's doorstep. Eager to win her hand in marriage, the first suitor was Chike, a strong and handsome man from a neighboring village. However, Ngozi found herself uneasy around Chike because of his aggressive nature. She politely declined his proposal and decided to move on. Despite Chike's rejection, many other suitors came knocking on Ngozi's door, each one hoping to win her heart. But it was Emeka who captured Ngozi's attention. Emeka was a wealthy man with a house of gold and was handsome, kind, and showered Ngozi with love and affection. She felt a deep connection with him, and soon they decided to get married. After seeking the blessings of Ngozi's relatives, Emeka and Ngozi exchanged vows in a traditional wedding and began their life together in Emeka's village, which was a few villages away. Ngozi was warmly welcomed into Emeka's family, who embraced her as one of their own. She felt grateful for their love and support as she embarked on his new chapter of her life. 2 months into the marriage, Ngozi received a joyful news: she was pregnant. Emeka couldn't contain his excitement at the prospect of becoming a father. He doted on Ngozi, taking care of her every need and ensuring she was comfortable throughout her pregnancy. Then, one fateful day, tragedy struck again. On the day of the naming ceremony for her twin baby girls, a cloud of sadness descended upon their village. Emeka fell ill suddenly, writhing in pain as he was diagnosed of poison. Despite the best efforts of the physicians, Emeka could not be saved, and he passed away, leaving Ngozi with their newborn twin daughters, heartbroken and alone. As the sun set on the village that day, Ngozi held her daughters close, grieving the loss of her beloved husband. Ngozi, now a widow, faced hostility from Emeka's family, who later kicked her out of their home. Ngozi had no choice than to return to her mother's house with her twin daughters, whom they had named Adaeze and Amaka. Ngozi struggled to make ends meet returning to her mother's house. Her in-laws had took away everything her husband owned, leaving her with nothing to fall back on. For 4 years, Ngozi faced hardship alone. She managed to start a petty fruit business to support her daughters. She worked tirelessly in the village market, selling fruits to provide for her family and send her daughters to school. Meanwhile, Chidera's life in the city had taken a turn for the better. She had later secured a job as a personal assistant in a big company, working closely with her boss, Silas. Despite her lack of formal education, Chidera's intelligence and experience helped her excel in her role. Over time, Silas began to develop feelings for Chidera, and they eventually started dating. One day, while on a date, Silas proposed to Chidera, expressing his deep love for her. Chidera happily accepted, but when Silas mentioned meeting her family, Chidera was struck with guilt. She hadn't been in touch with her family since she had left the village many years ago. Feeling restless and burdened by her past actions, Chidera decided to return to the village with gifts and money. When she arrived, Ngozi was surprised to see her long-gone sister, but also shocked by her transformation. Chidera immediately knelt down and begged for Ngozi's forgiveness, explaining why she had left without a word. Ngozi, still hurt by their mother's death and Chidera's absence, initially refused to forgive her. She recounted the struggles she had endured alone after their mother's passing. However, seeing Chidera's genuine remorse, Ngozi eventually softened and allowed her back into their lives. Chidera learned about Ngozi's marriage to a wealthy man named Emeka and the hardship she faced after his tragic death. She was also introduced to Ngozi's twin daughters, Amaka and Adaeze. Overwhelmed with guilt and sadness, Chidera vowed to make amends and help her sister. After a tearful reunion and sharing their stories, Chidera promised to assist Ngozi financially. But first, she wanted to get married. She revealed that Silas was eager to meet her family and discuss marriage. Excited for her sister's happiness, Ngozi eagerly agreed. Chidera then returned to the city, informing Silas about their upcoming trip to the village. Silas was thrilled and made preparation to meet Chidera's family. On the agreed day, they traveled to the village with Silas' family, where a traditional marriage ceremony was held after the bride price was paid. After the joyful celebration, Silas decided that Chidera should stop working to focus on their marriage and family life. He hired a new personal assistant to ensure Chidera's responsibilities were taken care of. Chidera's life in the city with her husband seemed very perfect from the outside, but hidden beneath the facade of happiness was a dark reality. When Chidera discovered she was expecting a child of her own, she decided to bring one of Ngozi's daughters to live with her in the city. She traveled to the village to talk to Ngozi about it. Excited at the prospect of giving her daughter a better life, Ngozi agreed to Chidera's proposal. She knew it would be difficult to part with one of her precious daughters, but she also knew it was an opportunity for a brighter future. Ngozi's heart swelled with gratitude. She couldn't believe her luck. Her daughter would have the chance to receive a good education and experience life in a different way. Ngozi called her daughters, Adaeze and Amaka, and explained the plan to them. Amaka's eyes lit up with excitement at the thought of going to the city with her auntie Chidera. She hugged her mother tightly, feeling grateful for this new opportunity. Chidera promised to take care of Amaka, ensuring she had everything she needed to thrive in the city. Ngozi felt a sense of relief, knowing that her daughter would be in good hands. With Amaka's departure, Ngozi would have one less mouth to feed and could focus on providing for herself and the remaining daughter Adaeze. As they prepared for the journey to the city, Ngozi's heart swelled with hope for Amaka's future. She prayed that her daughter would find success and happiness in their new home, and she vowed to keep her memory alive back in the village. The next day, tears of both sadness and joy filled Ngozi's heart. Ngozi bid farewell to her beloved daughter, knowing that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. When Chidera brought Amaka to the city, her demeanor changed drastically. Despite promising Ngozi to send Amaka to school and improve her life, Chidera became so cruel and treated Amaka like a mere servant. She made false promises of education and a better life, but never fulfilled them. Months turned into years, and even after giving birth to a baby boy, Chidera still didn't send Amaka to school. Instead, she forced Amaka to do all the household chores and take care of her baby. She would often beat and insult Amaka for the slightest mistakes, turning her into a common slave. Chidera's lies to Ngozi about Amaka's well-being continued. She would instruct Amaka to lie and say she was in a boarding school, eating well and doing fine. Meanwhile, Amaka suffered silently, longing for her mother and her sister. Silas, Chidera's husband, occasionally noticed Chidera's harsh treatment of Amaka and would confront her. Chidera, however, justified her actions, claiming she was teaching Amaka for her own good. In the village, Ngozi remained unaware of Amaka's ordeal. She believed her daughter was thriving in the city and focused on taking care of Adaeze. Adaeze, on the other hand, wished she was with Amaka, unaware of the truth of her sister's suffering. Chidera's cruelty towards Amaka escalated when Silas was not around. She would withhold food, beat her, and degrade her with hurtful words. But whenever Silas was present, Chidera would pretend to treat Amaka well to avoid his suspicions. One sunny afternoon, while Amaka was in the kitchen, her auntie Chidera called us to her. "Amaka, go and prepare noodles for my son," Chidera said, her voice stern. Amaka's stomach rumbled at the thought of food. She had been feeling hungry for a while, and the aroma of the noodles made her mouth water. As she cooked, temptation got the better of her, and she took a very small portion of the noodles to ease her hunger. But just as she was about to eat it, Chidera walked into the kitchen and caught her right in the act. Chidera's face turned red with anger. "How could you eat from my son's noodles?" And before Amaka could explain herself, she found herself on the receiving end of a harsh beating. Tears streamed down Amaka's cheek as she endured the pain of each blow. Amaka lay on the floor, bruised and broken, both physically and emotionally. The blows were so severe that Amaka collapsed on the floor. Instead of stopping, Chidera continued to berate Amaka, demanding that she get up and clean the mess she had made. But Amaka remained motionless, unresponsive to Chidera's commands. Panicked, Chidera checked on her and realized Amaka wasn't breathing. Fear gripped her as she tried to revive Amaka, but to no avail. With her husband's return imminent, Chidera concocted a plan. She poured water on the kitchen floor, dragged Amaka's body to the wet spot, and left her there, closing the door from the outside. When Silas arrived home and inquired about Amaka, Chidera lied, saying she was in the kitchen boiling water. Silas, unsuspecting, went to the kitchen and discovered Amaka's lifeless body. Shocked and horrified, he called Chidera, who feigned ignorance. Rushing Amaka to the hospital, they received the devastating news that she was already dead upon arrival. Chidera's panic grew, but she managed to convince Silas and the hospital staff that Amaka must have slipped and hit her head. They took Amaka's body to the mortuary, trying to bury the truth along with her. However, the neighbors, who had often heard Amaka's cries during Chidera's beating, immediately reported her to the police. They suspected foul play in Amaka's death, and at the police station, Chidera maintained her innocence, claiming Amaka's death was an accident. But the bruises and marks on Amaka's body raised suspicions. Silas, too, began to doubt Chidera's story as he noticed the signs of abuse as well. As the investigation unfolded, news of Amaka's tragic death reached the village. Someone who knew Ngozi and Chidera from way back contacted Ngozi, urging her to come to the city and uncover the truth. When Ngozi received the shocking news of Amaka's death, she couldn't believe it at all. She was in denial, refusing to accept that her daughter was gone. In an attempt to verify the truth, she called Chidera, but Chidera couldn't answer as she was in police custody. Silas, Chidera's husband, answered the call and lied about Amaka's whereabouts, claiming she was in school. Despite Silas' reassurances, Ngozi's doubts lingered. The next morning, she decided to travel to the city, leaving Adaeze with a friend in the village. Upon arriving, she was picked up by her friend and taken straight to Chidera's house, only to find it cordoned off due to the ongoing police investigation. Ngozi was devastated and demanded answers from Silas. She grabbed him, shouting and pleading for information about Amaka. The neighbors and onlookers explained the situation to Ngozi, further deepening her despair. She refused to believe her daughter was dead and spent the night at her friend's house, unable to come to the terms with the tragic reality. The following day, Ngozi's desperation grew. She confronted Chidera's husband again, demanding to know the truth. She couldn't accept that Chidera had misled her about Amaka's well-being. Meanwhile, at the police station, Chidera faced charges of manslaughter. Ngozi, upon hearing this, rushed to the station to confront Chidera. When they came face to face, Ngozi couldn't hold back her tears and sorrow. She questioned Chidera, asking why she had betrayed her trust and had taken her daughter's life. Chidera, instead of showing remorse, lashed out at Ngozi, accusing her of ingratitude. She argued that she had done so much for Ngozi and her family, and this was how she was repaid. Ngozi was stunned by Chidera's audacity, unable to comprehend how Chidera could twist the situation to make herself the victim. The tension between Ngozi and Chidera escalated, with Ngozi demanding justice for Amaka's death and Chidera attempting to deflect blame. The police investigation continued, unraveling more layers of the tragic incident. Chidera's hopes of evading justice were shattered when she lost the court case and received a 25-year sentence for Amaka's manslaughter. The courtroom was filled with tension as the verdict was read out. Chidera's shock was palpable as she was escorted out of the courtroom and into a waiting Black Maria, headed for prison. Silas, her husband, tried to plead with Ngozi, who was devastated by the loss of her daughter. Tears streamed down Ngozi's face as she struggled to comprehend the magnitude of Chidera's betrayal. She turned to Silas and asked if he knew about Amaka's maltreatment all along. Silas, with a heavy heart, admitted that he was unaware of the extent of Chidera's cruelty. He explained that he had warned Chidera about her treatment of Amaka but was misled into believing that Amaka was being sent to school and compensated accordingly. Ngozi reassured Silas that it wasn't his fault, acknowledging the deception orchestrated by Chidera. The sorrow and guilt weighed heavily on everyone involved, each grappling with their own emotions and regrets. In prison, Chidera's attempts to seek forgiveness from Silas were met with cold rejection. Silas expressed his regret for ever marrying her, condemning her actions and vowing to move on as a single dad, focusing on raising his son. Meanwhile, Ngozi returned to the village and shared the tragic news with everyone. She spoke of the lessons learned from the ordeal, vowing never to trust anyone with her children again. The village mourned the loss of Amaka, reflecting on the consequences of misplaced trust and deceit. Silas, in the city, embraced his role as a single parent, determined to provide a loving and nurturing environment for his son. He extended his support to Ngozi, providing her with financial assistance to start a business and care for her remaining daughter, Adaeze. Chidera's imprisonment served as a stark reminder of the consequences of cruelty and betrayal. And as time passed, Ngozi and Silas focused on rebuilding their lives respectively. While Chidera remained in prison, serving her sentence and paying the price for her heinous actions. The moral lesson from the story of Ngozi, Chidera and Silas is the importance of trust, responsibility and accountability within families. It highlights the consequences of betrayal, deceit and the mistreatment, emphasizing the need for honesty, kindness and empathy in our interactions with loved ones. The story underscores the value of parental responsibility, the impact of misplaced trust and the necessity of seeking justice when wrongs are committed. Ultimately, it teaches us to cherish and protect our family bonds, fostering a culture of trust, love, and support. Thanks for watching this captivating story on African stories and folktales. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories. Thank you.